Welcome to Open for Business. I'm your host, Anthony Murphy, and today we have the Facebook ads maverick himself, Mr. Paul Ramondo, back on the show for his second appearance. He first joined us in episode 32 to share his backstory, how he started his agency, Ramondo Media, and he also shared some great marketing tips. But today's topic of conversation is going to be much different. We're getting much more personal, talking about mindset, how to survive as an entrepreneur, and transparency in your content. Strap in, guys, settle in. This interview is on a much different level to the interviews that you will have heard on the show before. I hope you enjoy it. Let's listen in. Alrighty, we have the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Paul Ramondo, back on the show for the second time. How's things, dude?
What's up, my guy? How you doing? I'm very well.
Mate, it's quite warm. It's January. It's like 40 degrees outside, so it's warm, but it's a good day for chat.
Oi, love that. Do love summer. Not a fan of winter. And while we're talking about the weather, let me tell you, we had a 40-degree heat wave over the weekend here in Perth. Yeah. And it was stinking hot. Like, it was so hot. Like, literally, like, I think it got up to 42 degrees on Saturday. Yeah. And, like, literally, you could go outside on the sidewalk, crack an egg, and it would cook. That's how hot it was, man. It was like no wind, which is uncharacteristic of Perth because Perth's pretty windy. And then really, really interesting because today I got up to go for a walk every morning, right? It's part of my morning ritual. Of course. And in the summer, like, it's 25, 26, degrees pretty early in the morning, even at like 5, it's pretty warm, 5:30, it's pretty warm. Probably not that warm, it's pretty warm. But this morning I looked outside and it was like overcast and like rainy. And then I look at the temperature, 16 degrees. So we've done like a 20 plus degrees. I think that's right, Matt. Yeah, 20 plus degrees, like just flipped. And then tomorrow's going to be 32. So don't know what the weather's doing. Maybe, I don't know.
Sounds like you're in Melbourne, mate.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But yeah, anyway, that's the weather. That's the weather update in Perth here. We've got a good start, Anthony.
We've got the weather chat out of the way, so now we can get into the real stuff. Let's go back. So it was May 2016 when you first appeared on Open for Business. That was wow. That was we're approaching 3 years, mate. So
wow, we've been bromigos for 3 years, dude.
We have.
I love it.
Plus that little bit before, but hey, who's counting?
Yeah, very true, very true. Apparently you.
I am. So look, dude, it's you're the second person that I have interviewed for the second time. So we're doing a second round at the moment of legit people to get back on the show. And for most people, a lot has happened in 3 years. So, dude, how's business and what does it look like 3 years later?
Great question, mate. So I believe the last time we spoke was 3 years ago. You said 2016. So I was probably like about a year and a half or so into my first business. And things were going really well and things are still going really, really well. In terms of what's changed since then, I've got a staff member now, which is cool. Ooh, okay. And her name's Tara. She's amazing. She's been with me for 2 or 3 years now. Started as an intern and then she was doing some contract work for me. And then I got her on board and just trying to scale her up to full time at the moment. Basically, I really want to build, and I've been wanting to build a team, but I also throughout the last 3 years since we've chatted, I've kind of wanted to push away from building an agency model because I just didn't really make me happy. It wasn't really the vibe that I want. Yeah. And I love the client services side of things, but my passion's not really, they don't lie there. I've done client services for 8 years or so now. And in terms of I love all my clients are amazing and I really want to keep working with the current clients that we have and really cool projects that excite me. Yeah. But in terms of moving forward, my goal is to just get a lot more into the content creation side of things, a lot more into e-learning side of things, and a lot more into mentoring and coaching as opposed to consulting and client services in terms of what I'm doing with my personal time in the business as opposed to what the staff are doing.
Yeah, love it. Mate, for a little bit of context for anybody who didn't listen to episode 32, if you haven't, you should really press pause right here, go back, have a listen, because it's got Paul's complete backstory, how he started the business, and will really frame up the rest of this convo. But for anybody who just wants to keep on listening, Paul's business, Ramondo Media, based in Perth, Facebook ads agency, works with some of the biggest brands that we all know and love. Mate, can you reel some of those off for us?
Yeah, I'll give some shout outs. So one of the biggest brands we work with in Australia is Australian Sports Nutrition. So 35, 36, maybe more now, retail stores across Australia. Yeah. Love ASN. I love all my clients. Love ASN. Smith's Beach Resort, a beautiful, luxury resort based about 3.5 hours south of Perth in Australia's southwest. Absolutely gorgeous. Quality Resort Sorrento Beach have been clients of mine for a very long time. Andrew's long-term friend and mentor of mine. And one of our newest clients is Hidden, which is a bespoke boutique music festival that we are taking from. We did 6,000 people at the Perth Hidden event last year, and it was just local.
Yep.
And we're taking it international this year. So we're doing Perth, Brisbane, Sydney, and Auckland. So really exciting. And I think around about time this podcast comes out, will be the first date of, about, I think the 22nd is Auckland Hidden. And so about that time we're listening. So yeah, good times. Yeah.
Dude, what's the Insta handle for Hidden?
Discover Hidden. That's awesome. It. Just Discover Hidden and discoverhidden.com. Yeah, 100%. Love that plug.
Love it.
So we're in a little Hidden, basically a walking, talking billboard for Hidden right now.
Bit of merch.
Got the Hidden merch, and hold on, let me see if I can get on this side or this side.
Lovely.
Get amongst it.
Get amongst the people. Discover Hidden on Instagram. Check it out. All right, so let's get right into this chat today, mate, because different to last time we spoke, we went pretty tactical and practical into Facebook ads, that sort of things, into the marketing side of things. This time, we're going to have a bit more of a chat about being a human, really, and the personal side of running a business, so mindset, balance, goal setting, all that sort of stuff, all the stuff that probably doesn't get spoken about often enough. And for anybody who has been following your journey lately, they will know that you have you've had tough times like everybody has, and the difference is that you've opened up, I suppose, and shared that side of yourself, shared the side of being an entrepreneur and running a small business and all the pressure and the stress and everything that goes with that, and the impacts that can have on you. So I'm keen to see where this chat goes, mate. Yeah,
100%. Where would you like to start?
Mate, I don't know. Let's start with mindset. Let's start with mindset and what it takes because there are so many people that listen to this podcast that I know are small business owners or they're entrepreneurs or they want to head in that path.
Yep.
So when it comes to mindset, like what things do you think people need to have or be aware of? What's the really tough things that sort of don't get spoken about enough when it comes to entrepreneurship?
And so mindset and entrepreneurship, so many things.
I know, right?
Yeah, where do I start? I'll start with this. One thing that I've realized and learnt along my journey, I'm like 4 years into doing this entrepreneur thing now, full time, and I've had my own business for I think 8 years now. But in terms of being full time, like fourth year of business now.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest lessons that I've learnt especially over the last 2 years, especially after I'd been through 2-3 stints of burnout and just being in a very, very low place in terms of, my happiness and my energy levels and going down the rabbit hole. And I talk a lot about this, give myself a little plug, but I talk a lot about all the entrepreneurship, burnout and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, not really fun stuff, but all that kind of serious stuff on my blog. So there's a few episodes on that where I kind of unpack it all because it's a really long discussion. But basically what I've learned over the last few years, Anthony, is that for me anyway, the emotional return on investment from the work that I'm doing needs to always match, if not exceed, the fiscal return on investment that I'm making from that same work.
Yeah.
And for me, and I fell into this trap, and because when you start a business, right, like you gotta pay bills. If you got like yourself, you got a small family, you got a family to support, and then you've got all these big crazy ambitions and these goals. You're like, I need to work, hustle, grind, and you got to do that. And I did that. I did that, and I used to wear like the amount of hustle that I in grind and the amount of hours that I'd work, like no hyperbole, like over 90 hours a week. And I used to like clock my hours, and I used to use that as a little like badge. Like, like did 99 hours this week. Fucking, what you got?
Who else did that?
Say again.
So who else is doing that?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And it was like an ego thing as well. And ego is really destructive. But that's a whole other tangent. So basically what I realized, like, you've got to put in the hours, you've got to put in the work. And especially when it's make or break at the very start of the business, like you've just got to do it. You've got no choice but to do it. And the cool thing about the start, and I really romanticize at the start, is that you've got this energy reserve that is untapped because you've thrown yourself in the deep end. Like I quit my job, I threw myself in the deep end, started my business in a shoebox excuse of a bedroom in an apartment that I was sharing with a couple.
Yeah.
And you just got to make it work, And then it starts to work. And then you start not chasing, but like pragmatically, you need to generate revenue and you need to build that revenue and have it come back in.
Yeah.
So you keep doing that. And I'm sure a lot of people have to relate to the notion of like, especially in client services, like you've got the skill set and the skill set expands, maybe like you're really, really good at like this, like a small amount, like, in like a really small amount, like you're really, really good at it, like you're an expert, but you're also good at like a lot more. So it makes sense at the start not to niche down, but to just kind of get as much business through as possible. And you're still going to do a great job, still provide great work. But what I've learned is when you spread yourself so far and so thin, it's really hard, especially as a solo operator, when you're running a business and you've got all the admin side of things and you've got the staff side of things, the contractor side of things, and the branding and the upkeep and just everything else that comes in the marketing and all that kind of stuff that comes, the content creation, all the stuff that comes with running a business and generating leads and sales for yourself. You've got all that to take care of, all the internal stuff, but then you've got to do the stuff that keeps the lights on. And if you're not, what I've learned if you're not focusing on what you're really, really good at, like for example with me, Facebook ads, right? Instagram ads, funnels. Yeah. If you're not focusing just on all of that, trying to keep the upkeep on everything else, especially when you don't have a team, you can't afford to have a team to niche down and specialize in those areas that are outside your core, real specialty skill set. Yeah. You've then got a bunch of homework that you need to be doing on a week-to-week to day-to-day basis because you need to keep up with the current trends. You need to keep up with like what's happening with this algorithm change on Google, what's happening with like, exactly. And then it just all compounds. So now you still got to do a great job, right? Yeah. So now you've got to service all the clients. Your business is growing. Your time is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's only so much hustle that you can do before like you burn out, right?
And there's only so much pull that's left,
100%. And I refer to it as the work hustle burnout quicksand, right? Yeah. Like, and that's how I felt. I literally felt like the quicksand of my own creation was beginning to drag and pull me under. And no matter how much I tried to hustle, no matter how much I tried to just get myself out, I just kept pulling down like under and under and under. And it just became overwhelming, so overwhelming. And it just did a number on my mental health. It led to me abusing just an array of things and just doing stupid things. Like I needed to be wired. I was so tired, so I had to be wired all the time. Yeah. So I was smashing way too much caffeine. Yeah. And, and then I couldn't sleep at night properly because like I was so stressed about what was going on with work. And then there was just like this ironic, like self-perpetuating cycle.
Vicious cycle.
Yeah. And then ironically, and the relationship over the past 4 years, the relationship between time and money has become it's so cliche, but it's become so profoundly, I've just understood it on a whole nother level in terms of like business, right? Yeah. You make more money, you have less time. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And especially as a solo operator or someone that's trying to go from a solo operator to expanding and scaling up, like it's so real. And trying to find that balance between the two. Yeah. And then also trying to service your personal fiscal responsibilities and your dependables.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And all the other
still exists outside of the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to go full circle, what I've learned that's kind of like the real nutshell version of the story, but what I've learned is when you pursue what is meaningful to you, I'll like paraphrase Jordan Peterson, and if you don't know who Jordan Peterson is, definitely look him up, but pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. So for me in my business, I've learned in terms of tapping into that unlimited infinity supply of energy that I had, which I've been chasing since when I started my business in that bedroom. In order to have that energy, you need to be like really passionate and motivated about what you're doing on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Yeah. And work's hard. Starting a business is hard. Yeah. Running a business is hard. It's not all peaches and roses. It's not all like the glorified PR version of yourself on Instagram. Like, look how sick I'm doing. This is so dope. I'm having the best time.
Just leaning on your Lamborghini, mate.
Yeah, mate. Look, private jet. Take a quick selfie. Don't own this. Didn't even go in it, but I got this private jet. So I feel like for me, the secret that I've learned is chasing the emotional return on investment and balancing that with the fiscal return on investment. Because you get to a point where like, okay, I mean, how much money do I want to make and at what expense to my emotional like stability or like the quality of my life?
Exactly. Why did you start a business in the first place? Like,
exactly.
It was for like in some part freedom, right? But then you're getting to the point where there just isn't any freedom and it's all self-inflicted. So Yeah.
The irony of this, the freedom trap, the irony of freedom when you run a business is, and for people that don't run a business, and I empathize with them and I totally understand. It's hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes and empathize with their disposition when you haven't, walked any miles in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the outside looking in, especially on a lot of people's Instagram profiles, like I said, everyone's PRing themselves, everyone's putting the perfect version of themselves out there. Yeah. And I'm trying really hard to not do that.
And a really good job at that too. That's, maybe people should go back, have a look at your Instagram profile, and, go back 6 to 12 months, have a look at the content, and then the last 6 months, have a good look at that content and see the change. And it's
that's awesome. Thank you.
Not that you weren't real before, that was real, but this is like you said, it's the non-PR, it's the behind the curtain look, I suppose, because you're actually it's another level of authenticity, I suppose, because instead of it being, all good and high energy, which is you, it's also the not so pretty side as well, which everybody has, but not everybody talks about or not everybody shows.
100%. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that, Anthony.
And the other thing too that I was going to say is working 90 hours a week, just going hell for leather, doing what you were doing. When that did get too much, so you're working that hard to get to a certain point, to get to the next level, to earn the extra dollars, right? But then you do hit that point of burnout, and then how long was the period for you from that recovery from burnout?
Good question.
And how big was that impact on the business? Because you've been working so hard to get everything done and grow the business, but then you hit the point where you've got to stop. And then does that just negate basically all that time and effort that you put in previously? Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's a really good question. It's really hard to quantify because I always prioritize whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. I always prioritize my clients over everything else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's what's keeping the lights on, right?
Yeah.
And they sign a contract with you and you sign a contract with them. And for me, it's you have a fiduciary duty to your clients to deliver on the services in which they're paying for. For me, it's a moral obligation as well. You've got you've got to do the right thing. Yeah. Doing the right thing is always the right thing. You've got to do the right thing. Yeah. So you'll notice ebbs and flows in terms of if you audit my content, I can go through my feed and I'm you may. So when I was experiencing burnout, the thing is unless you have the staff and the support system in your business, if you're still in, year 1, year 2, depending on how much you've grown and how fast you've grown.
Yeah.
And I think irrespective of how fast you've grown and how many staff you have, you still got to do the work.
Yeah.
And you still got to do it. So you may be feeling shit and you may be having a bad time, but you still got to do it, you still got to get it done. So with me, I would scale back on when I was doing, I did 13 weeks of vlogs in a row. And that was I'd be up at 4:30 on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah.
And I'd already have the vlog content all ready to go. And then I would edit from 5 o'clock, 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning until lunchtime on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And then I do my client work and then I do more editing that night. And then the vlog will be up on Wednesday. And then I do micro content editing for that in the Wednesday afternoon. Then the micro content will be pushed live that afternoon.
Yeah.
And then that was the kind of the strat and the schedule that I was running with. And then things got really busy with clients, and then I was also not having a good time, and then I had to make the decision. The other thing as well, Anthony, was I had to make the decision because I play I am myself on camera, but I play a caricature of myself on camera. It's me, but the volume of my personality is 12 out of 10 to make things entertaining.
Of course.
And just gotta, and I love doing that.
The inner marketer's coming out in you, mate.
Oh yes, that's it. That's it. So the thing is, I then found myself in a point where I'm trying to be transparent and genuine in terms of who I am, despite the fact that I'm just accentuating what's the word? Idiosyncrasies and how eccentric I am in terms of I'm just turning all that up because I am all that, but it's turned up off the camera. Let's get the engagement.
That's what we love about you, mate.
Thank you. But I found it so hard to play this caricature of myself when behind the scenes I was having a shit time.
Yeah.
And then I started stressing out because I'm trying to hit this vlog upload schedule. And then I had no time to do it, no energy to do it. Then I didn't feel authentic about doing it. And I was what am I even doing? Why am I doing this? Yeah. So the short answer to the long and short of it is it affected my business mainly for me in terms of how much content I was putting out.
Yeah.
And that, I think if you were to quantify that would result in less leads and less sales, and basically that's it.
Yeah.
Which ironically, like, in terms of what I wanted, because I got so stressed to the point where, like, I knew, like, and not patting myself in the back or anything, it just is what it was.
Yeah.
I was on, like, this content highway of, like, I was very relevant to all of my audience. I was everywhere. Like, I was ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And it was such a fascinating thing in terms of, like, brand recall and leads, because I was everywhere. Everyone in my audience knew who I was. And then I was getting all these leads, queries, questions, inquiries. So every time I put out new content, it would be a stream of extra tasks for me to follow up.
Yeah.
So that was,
yeah.
and I'm like, what a fantastic problem to have. But it just stressed me out even more. I was like, I don't want to put content out because then I have to do the community management and all the lead follow-ups, and
So, look, for anyone listening, I think it's a really good point to make, because, we do see so much of, the PR version, and, you need to be putting out a vlog, and you need to be putting out micro content, and you need to be everywhere, and all this sort of stuff. And it takes its toll, and a lot of the people, one, you did a fantastic job from your skill set. Like, you knew how to be everywhere, you knew how to create good content, like, you could do it. For most people, like, the big influencers that we see on social media that are putting out that type of content, like your vlogs, like the attention to detail and the time and effort that you put into them, they're like first class cinematography, like,
thank you,
transitions, like, it looks so damn good, right? For people in the equivalent space putting out the equivalent content, they've got teams of people doing that, right? So it's a testament, one, to your skill set and how hard you work, and the fact that you were able to do that. But also the fact that, it did get to the point where there was that burnout. And I think that's the important lesson, because there's so many people that are listening now and that are, sitting behind their phone right now, looking at content saying, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this. But you've got to be careful, because it might just not be physically possible to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's okay. Like,
yeah, it's totally okay. And the other thing as well is, like, don't ever compare it's so cliche, run your own race.
Yeah.
And this is a thought trend that I've been on for, the last 8-9 months, right?
Yeah.
And I understand me giving this advice is not mapped by my actions, and I'll explain why. I'll give the advice, and then I'll explain why my actions don't map to this advice, and what I'm doing now to fix that. Okay. So on your point, thank you very much for that feedback about my content. Like, that means a lot to me. Love it. Thank you. So this is actually gonna be really good, because I'll tie everything that we've spoken about up to this point together. So emotional return on investment. I'm a massive nerd, dude. Like, I love what I do, and I love creating.
Yeah.
And I love being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I get a cathartic release from sitting down and learning how to use Premiere and learning how to do effects. I have a cathartic release from seeing something in my head, or
explosions.
Yeah, mate. I just love explosions, and that, from an emotional return on investment POV, it made me so happy. I love doing it. I love doing it. But then the irony of that was, it's not real. Like, it's a hobby. It's not something that needs to be really done. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to do it more pragmatically for the business, then the scale and the quality of production should be taken all the way back. I should just be doing a Gary V, Gary says, document versus create.
Yeah.
And I was documenting, but I was also creating.
Yeah.
The thing about me creating was it was making me happy, because I really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
Except I didn't map to the fiscal return on investment from the output of the content that I was making. So it was a hobby.
Yeah.
And then when you spend 10 hours in front of a computer all day anyway doing client services stuff, so keep the lights on and build your business.
Yeah.
It's hard to then escape that, or to be motivated to sit down again and then do like a 7-hour edit session over a few days,
Yeah. Yeah.
So does that all make sense if I tied that all together? I think.
Yeah. And like, again, it comes back to your point before about, time and money. And the point that I wanted to make was the fact that when, you do go into that, business building phase, or I'm going to start something of my own, there is so much pressure, and there's so much, like, everybody wants to make create $1 million business or a multi-million-dollar business. And like, there's that level that everybody thinks that they're going to get to, right? But just on that, like, how much money do you need? Exactly.
How much do you need? Because I made more money, and I'm not like boasting or anything, but I made more money in my first 9 months of business than I'd ever like made in my life, right? In terms of like that time frame.
Yeah.
Gross sales. So the net was, close to nothing. I was paying myself close to nothing because reinvesting back in the business. But then as I've grown the business and scaled up more, I've done fiscally okay for myself personally. And I work really hard. I think if you would extrapolate out the time value of money for the amount of hours that I put into the business, because it's all the time, it'd be equivalent to working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not to shit on people working at McDonald's, but I'm in terms of the value of my time in terms of what I'm making per hour and how much I work. Yeah. It just,
and we all go into business for the freedom and to make big bucks, Yeah.
But then it's how much money do you need? So and to go back to sorry, I fully cut you off, but I'll finish this point. To go back to the emotional return on investment thing, if you're happy doing what you're doing and you have time to go to the gym and see your friends or go out and party or whatever, and you're running a business, everyone's need to hit that magical 7-figure number. But here's the thing, you get to the 7-figure number, not that I'm there, but you get as you scale up, right?
Yeah.
Your expenses increase.
Yeah.
You don't have the time to make all that revenue yourself, especially in a client service-based business. How much money do you need? And that's why it's make sure you're clear on what gives you the emotional return on investment and why you're doing why it is you're doing what you're doing. Because if you get to that level, you'll hate your life. Because
it's all relative too. You're on a 5-figure salary compared to a 7-figure salary. As you said, it comes back to more money, more problems. It's all relative.
So true.
You might make more money, but you also spend more money. So it doesn't mean that you've necessarily got more money in the bank or more money to spend. It's all relative. And it does. It comes back to that happiness thing. If you're going into business to, become really rich, do you need that much money to be happy? You don't need to work 90 hours a week. You might be happy to work 40 hours a week. Yep. And then you've got the flexibility of, using the rest of your time the way you want to. Okay, so you might make a 7-figure business, but hey, if things are good, if you're happy, then you've won. That's the thing.
That's it. Yeah. And let me tell you, when I was not having a good time, I'm not balling. I don't make much money, right? In the big scheme, I do well for myself.
Not many people do. That's the thing.
That's it. I do well for myself, but I don't make that much money, right? Compared, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not anything like that. I'm just a dude running a business, pursuing his passions. That's where I'm at. And I'm happy. I'm really stoked with that.
Exactly.
But what I learned with burning out and all of the pressure that I put myself under was that I was working so much. I had no time for myself. I wasn't doing the things that made me feel good for me, right? I stopped doing all those things because work became everything.
Yeah.
And then I realized, and then I had all this extra, because time, money. So I had no time, but I had all this extra money. And I was reinvesting back in the business, but then I felt like I could reward myself that I earned it. So I went and bought all of the fancy things that I wanted, when I was younger. I didn't go out and buy expensive car because I don't drive, but I got myself a booster board. I love that thing. Just sitting over there. I got myself a booster board. I bought myself all these techie toys. I was always unboxing stuff, and they're all business expenses because they're all related to my business. I got myself a $6,000 camera for vlogging, all this stuff. Now, the reason I share that story with you is because I would be buying all this stuff, the short-term immediate dopamine release of buying it and the delayed dopamine release of opening it and doing an unboxing video. And then because I had no time, I never got to use the stuff that I bought.
Yeah, exactly.
So they were literally collecting dust on my shelf. And then I was reflecting. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm making money to buy stuff that I don't need, that I want, that I don't get to use, that I don't have enough time to use them.
Yeah.
And then I psychoanalyzed myself, and I was like, I'm just doing it because I'm sad. Retail therapy, essentially.
And so many of us do.
Yeah. And which further accentuates my point of how much money do you need?
Exactly.
Because money does not equal happiness.
No. And that's the big lesson, right, for so many people is that, and especially in that social digital space, it's so prevalent, there's cash everywhere, there's success everywhere, there's, fancy cars and big holidays and all that sort of stuff. But, at the end of the day, that's not
It's not real life.
It's not real life. No, exactly. And it's not the definition of happiness either. So
no, it's not. And the message is, it's so broken. And And like there was an episode of the Joe Rogan podcast I watched a few weeks ago where he was talking to, I can't remember who his guest, Joe's guest was, but he was basically, they mapped out and they correlated the suicide rate for young men and young women and the rate of self-reported depression for young men and young women. Yeah. And they mapped that to the advent of social media, right? Yes. In terms of like full on like mainstream penetration.
Yeah.
Specifically Instagram, Facebook. So, and I'm find the episode, don't quote me on this.
We'll link it.
Yeah. Don't quote me on this, but it was, I can't even remember the numbers, but you look at the graph and you basically got pre-2015, you know, let's say that, I'm just picking this number out of my ass, but let's say that the suicide rate in young men, 9 to 14, was, let's say it was like, you know, or self-reported depression rate was like 9%.
Yeah.
And then you go beyond 2015, so the new gen, the Gen Z, I think, and also the advent of Instagram and Facebook mainstream population adoption, and it just skyrockets up.
Yeah.
And then it stays at that skyrocket level. And then looking at my own feeds and how other people are consuming social and the conversations I have with other people in terms of what it's doing to people's self-esteem and keeping up with the Joneses and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I look at everyone, you know, across multiple industries, especially in the entrepreneurship like area as well. Like, you know, success is you got to show how fancy you are and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not realistic, and no one's really talking about the real stuff behind the scenes.
No.
And that's kind of also where I got to a point with my journey as well. Like, I want to be a lot more transparent in terms of like I'm pretty happy all the time and I'm pretty energetic all the time, but sometimes shit's really hard. Yeah. And I don't like complaining. And what I try to do with my content, I'm not complaining. I'm just giving you an insight behind the curtains because, hey, this shit's hard.
Exactly.
And when people come to me and they're like, or they used to come to me in the past, like, bro, you're killing it. You're so successful. Look at you. Congratulations. Fuck yeah. Go. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, like, not killing it. Like, I'm just working really hard.
Yeah.
And it's not all that good. And then I'm like, maybe I need to adjust my messaging because it's not resonating I'm not putting out the right message. My message is off and it's not correlating with what my brand values like have evolved to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I've gone down the transparency route in terms of giving a bit more of behind the scenes look of like, it's hard, man.
Exactly.
This is hard, bro. It's not fun. It's fun, but it's not, you know?
And that's like the big takeaway from this episode too is, you know, it's a big thank you for going down that path and sharing that, because that's the message we need to be putting out there. You know, especially by people who work in that digital social space. Like, you know, it's so good, and you know, there's so much positive about it, but there's also, like anything, there's also the negative side about it. And that's why, you know, this chat is one that I was really keen to have, because it's an important one to get out there. So really appreciate you sharing it, dude.
Thanks, Anthony. I appreciate you having me.
Mate, we could go on for a very long time.
We definitely could.
I think maybe we schedule another one. Maybe not for another 3 years, but let's schedule another one down the track.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's so many important messages that need to be put out there, and you're playing in that space, mate. So it's awesome that you're willing to share. And thanks once again.
Thanks so much for having me, Anthony, and thank you to everyone for listening.
Dude, where can people find out more about you?
I love it. I was going to give myself a plug, but you beat me to it.
Mate, Shannon's plug, go.
Look, just Paul Ramondo on Instagram. So PaulRamondo on Instagram, and drop us a follow and slide in my DMs, have a chat. Always down.
Dude, thank you so much. We'll get you back on very soon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Anthony. See ya.
So that's it for another episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you love the show, the greatest form of feedback you can give is to leave a review. It helps the show grow, it helps more people find it, and I would really appreciate that. Head over to anthonygmurphy.com, where you'll find all the show notes and links for today's episode. And if you just want to stay up to date with me and see what I'm up to, head over to Instagram, Anthony G. Murphy, and say g'day. And I will talk to you in the next episode.